Dasara, that occurs in the autumn season around September-October, is another festival that brings the faithful in their thousands to Prashanti Nilayam. Dasara is also the occasion when devotees get a chance to experience the grandeur of the Vedas. The yajnas performed in Prashanti Nilayam last 7 days, the climax being the Purnahuti function that marks the end. After the completion of the yajna, Swami personally blesses all those present by sprinkling the holy water.
Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.
Sai Ram, Sai Ishwaraya Vidmahe Satyadevaya Dhimahi Tanna Sarva Prachodayat. My loving pranams at the lotus feet of our dear Lord and Sai Ma. I thank Swami for giving me an opportunity to be here and sit before you and talk today. I thank all my brothers from the Satsa organization who have helped me, who have actually made it possible for me to sit here and talk to you today about my own life experiences. When Brother Subbarao and Brother Praveen actually approached me to talk about, for this edition of Manohriday, to talk about my life experiences, it was something very special for me. I have been following these editions of Manohriday from when they started. Very senior doctors, senior devotees, a lot of senior people have actually spoken on this stage, and it is actually a pride and privilege to sit here and speak in front of you today. They have spoken about their own life experiences, which are very unique to them, which are very special, and actually just being here in the presence of Swami and working for this organization makes life very, very special for me too. My experiences may not be completely out of the world like many other experiences, but as I said, they are all dear to me because each one has strengthened my faith in Swami and in myself, and in how he has held my hand and actually guided me in my entire life and my journey here. That's why I have titled this as my journey home, because this is, I have come to believe that this is where the origin is and this is where the destination is. It's very rare that you start and begin at the same point. To start off my life experiences, of course I'm very junior to, as I said, to many people who speak about their life experiences. But when actually Brother Praveen gave me an essence of what I'm going to speak today, he said you have to talk about your life experiences. So when I started jotting down a skeleton as to where I should start my life experience as, I realized that probably Swami had control over my life even before I was born. And I say this because I had a sister. My parents had their first child in 1966. They were actually married in 65, and the first child was born in 1966, and she was a very special child. special in actually the medical terminology. She was mentally and physically quite retarded. And for a couple that came from very staunch roots of being Swami's devotees, it came as quite a shock to my grandparents and my parents that they had such a progeny. And I am told that in 1971, when my parents actually visited Swami back in Puttaparthi, my mother was given to understand by Swami that he would repair the same child and give it back to her. And it's quite emotional when I think about it that when I was born in 1979, she died in 1976, but when I was born 3 years later in 1979, to the exact time of the day and the exact tithi, I and my sister share the same birthday. And it was his way of strengthening their devotion in Swami, of course. And it is something that has stayed with our family for a very long time, that Swami actually heeded to that prayer of mother. And one mother gave another mother the best gift that she could give, that was another child at the age of 40. My parents were 40 when I was born. So, and of course, it was followed up by a customary visit to the mother who had given me birth and who sort of named me later as Sai Prayag, which is my name, obviously. Uh, of course, from there, the journey of life took many turns. Since we were from Bombay and I was trained in Bombay, I always felt that I sort of lost out a chance to study in either of the campuses of Swami, either in Kodai or later on in Vrindavan or even Parthi. But then Swami had other plans for me. I did my MBBS in Mumbai, and after my MBBS, of course, I wanted to do my higher studies. And when I was preparing for my higher studies, of course, I got a very good rank in MBBS, so that was a lead on that I wouldn't leave Mumbai again. So I got a chance to study in All India Institute of Medical Sciences, Delhi. And I was very thrilled because in those days it was quite difficult to get. It still is quite difficult to get into AIIMS. But when I went for the counseling, and I was, absolutely sure that I was going to go and study there. I even went to the auditorium of AIIMS for my counseling with one of my cousins who was in IIT Delhi. AIIMS is in Delhi, so I took him along as my local guardian. I don't know what happened on that day, at that moment. Of course, it's something that his energy has sort of ruled over all my decisions. I went up to the stage and I told the professors there, those, bespectacled supreme professors from AIIMS, I told them I'm not interested in a seat here. They looked intrigued. They looked shocked that somebody comes with a rank 8 in All India, comes there and says, I don't want a rank. And they said, what is your future plan really? And I had nothing really in mind at that point, and something in me told me that I was not going to be there. I came back to Mumbai, did my MD post-graduation in medicine in Mumbai. And again, I luckily was in a unit where my unit head was a cardiologist. And obviously there was a natural grooming into cardiology with that. Probably something I wouldn't have got because my unit head in AIIMS would not have been like a cardiologist, cardiology teacher. So in any case, so it was to be that I was in a unit which trained in cardiology. And when I appeared for my entrance exam, obviously I gave, for my DM entrance, I gave my selection as cardiology. And when that happened, again when I got a good rank, I was all India rank 3. And when I went for my counseling, I took another hospital in Bangalore, quite far away from here. And our name had not figured that year, our institute name had not figured that year because of some glitch by the Board of Examinations. So our name was not there. Puttaparthi also was not there. It never occurred to me that I should take it there. Anyway, that since the name was not there, there was no impetus to take it. So I joined this hospital far away from ours in Bangalore, started working there, enrolled there, started working there, and 2 weeks into the course, I have 2 of my seniors walk by, speaking to each other, at that conjuncture where I could hear. And one said to the other, it is so surprising, these were his exact words, it is so surprising that an institute with 2 or 3 gold medals in cardiology has not got a single student this year. I was nowhere concerned in the whole conversation. He actually made me hear it. And I was also shocked that you have a cardiology seat in Satya Sai, and why is there like no student there? It was a Friday evening, 4 o'clock. We were actually winding up our day. Saturday morning, I was here in our hospital, in our temple of healing, and I met Dr. Dash and I asked him, "Sir, is it true that we have a seat and we don't have a student here?" So he said, "Yes, there has been a glitch this year," and he knows how to correct all the glitches, of course. So there I was on Saturday morning. I told him, "Sir, I want to join here. It's an institute which I have seen as a Sevadal 2001 when it opened. We had come here for the opening, and it was quite a memorabilia for me to go back in time almost 10 years. So 2009 when I actually joined this institute. So it was 9 years earlier that I've actually been here on a different role altogether. And that Saturday morning I told Das sir that I was really interested in joining, and he obviously welcomed me. I don't think I've ever gone back to Narayana after that even to collect my luggage. It's still lying in that room somewhere in Bomasandra. So it's been a long 11 years, and then we have always one thought process where we plan to do something which our monkey mind wants to do, and there's something which he wants us to do. So if I look back, it was a track that was quite well laid down right from MBBS days. Because at each juncture I felt that if I had gone somewhere else, that whole branch point would have changed somewhere. But all branch points leave with him, so that was good for me. So it didn't stop at that. I joined the institute, and 2 weeks into the institute, I realized that the only language I knew coming from Mumbai was Hindi and Marathi. I was the first student in this institute who was not a Kannadiga. I don't want to make a distinction here, but the point is, when you treat patients, you are always better when you speak the language that they speak, because that full patient-doctor connect is much better. And here I was, trying to treat patients who were from Karnataka, speaking Kannada, speaking Malayalam, speaking Telugu, speaking Tamil, speaking Bengali, speaking Odia, and I knew nothing of any of these languages. I completely felt like a fish out of water, because if you cannot communicate, you are stuck in that communication with the patient. You can't really make out what kind of disease he has or whatever. 2 weeks down the line, I decided that this was not going to be the place where I'm going to work. And I called up my parents. Of course, they were shattered back in Mumbai. They said, you went with so many plans and you could have done this, you could have done that. Why did you go there? And you have not done any groundwork, they felt. So, in any case, it was a Saturday. And I decided that I was going to write a letter. I spoke to HR and they said, you can write a letter because you can still go for a second round counseling back to Delhi and take another institute. You don't want to lose a year. I said, fine. I was going to resign. I took a paper and I wrote a handwritten note. If you ever come to the hospital, you'll realize that there are two ways of coming from the cardiology ward to the cardiology OPD in our hospital. I used to take the first way. The first way is to come down the steps, come across the dome area, across the director's office, and then go to the OPD. The other way is when you come across from the ward, old cardiac ward, to the current ward, and then you step down. When you do that, you come past the HMIS department, where actually Brother Subbarao sits, who's right behind me here. So I usually don't take the second path. That's because when we walk, we have Swami's photograph in the dome area, and you tend to sort of walk past his head, and the feet come a little higher than that. So I always been taught to walk this way. When I came to the hospital, even initially in 2001. So I decided to take. That day, I didn't go by path 1. I went by the path 2. I don't know why I did that. And when I went by the second path, I crossed the HMIS department. There's one photograph of Swami there if you come there near the server room, in the main server room if they would call it that, where Swami is standing like this. He's got this posture. He's actually standing sort of with a small sleight of his hand this way. And you have to believe me when I say this, because what happened at that moment was quite electric. I usually only gaze at Swami's photographs as we go, and then we do this to Swami. But that moment was four eyes connecting, and it was very clearly that there was a clear message from Swami. Where are you going? What are you going to do? Something like that. And trust me, I had developed cold feet by that time. I was sweating, and it was something which I had never experienced in my life. Many people would tell their own experiences. You have to believe mine because I'm saying it. And that was the end of it. That was the end of the resignation letter. That was the end of everything. I neatly folded the letter, went back to the OPD and started my job again. So there is something quite revealing in that. I felt that we always look at this mundane thing of trying to talk about the patient's language, and at whatever thought process I was doing that. But the fact of the matter is he's actually taught me that day that probably language doesn't really matter. Quite intriguingly, the same day evening, Saimira madam called me to her room and said something about this. You will have a lot of doctors coming and a lot of patients coming talking all languages. It's okay, we are all used to it. I don't know why she said it and in what context she said it, but it was obviously a message from somewhere higher up that the only language that you really need to speak in this place is the language of love, which I'm still learning to after a decade. It doesn't really matter because patients, when they come here, they don't come having learnt a language, and the only language is the language of disease and the language of healing. That's all that you need to know. So I think that was a great revelation that Swami gave me on that day, and put to rest all the worries that I should worry about any language barriers in this place. Going ahead, of course, some things which have stayed with me very, very importantly is that I thankfully became a entry point for my wife to come in, who's also working with us in this hospital as an anesthetist. She comes from a totally non-devotee family. I have one of my seniors who spoke recently, and this whole thing about devotee and non-devotee came up. I personally believe that there is no need of any person who's been here. A lot of people who are actually working here, even the boys, they don't have an initiation really into a Satya Sai family when they come from childhood. I had, thankfully, because I had parents and grandparents who had that initiation. But I seriously don't believe that that is required for Swami at all, because he will call you as per, I believe, as per our karma, and whenever our time has come, we'll come here for whatever little service that we can offer here. In whatever way, in whatever might we have. We need not be doctors also, we need not be staff, we can be any form of seva that we can give. But I think that is what Swami is looking for, rather than a qualification or being from a Satya Sai family or whatever it's called. Going a little ahead, of course, I will talk about some things which are a little quite personal, and I'm not really shared with many people. One very vivid memory comes back in 2010. Swami has always told us that he will take care of our families, and there were some pointers to that very clearly, in our life. We had an international conference in 2010, for which I was a part of from our team, as well as a volunteer because I was from the host organization. And this was done calling all the big shots, big doctors of cardiology across the globe, and many luminaries from India. And my job in the evening, which Iyer sir had given me, was take these doctors to the temple, to the mandir for Swami's darshan when Swami comes out. Swami used to come out in a chair in 2010, and we would all be sitting near that veranda, and my job was to sort of guide them around. I don't remember still the sequence of events, how it happened, but someone thrust a invitation card in my hand and said, so you have to call Swami next time he comes to Whitefield, that he should come there. So I said fine, and with that there was one kumkum and one vibhuti container. So I was just sitting there. I don't know what transpired there, but then when Swami came inside the hall, into Kulwant hall, and I can clearly remember his eyes and looking at me and telling the full retinue to stop there, and then he was right in front of me. And as I gave my request, Swami did something quite unique. What he did is he actually took some kumkum out, and he didn't sprinkle it on me. What he did is he sort of rubbed it on me here. It was actually a kind of a rubbing. Whatever Swami does is good for us. So I was happy I got that audience. And many of the doctors said, oh, you're so lucky and all. So I was happy with that. The thing ended there. It was a Saturday evening. Sunday, I had decided to fly down to Mumbai, because Monday there was some legal work to be done in the with Dad at home with our lawyer about our house. And then Friday evening I was to fly back. I had taken Dr. Dash's permission for this. So Sunday morning I was in Mumbai, and my mother, having finished all her household chores, was coming out of the bathroom. I wasn't there to see this happen, but I heard a thud, and there was clearly a sickening crack. My dad and me actually ran towards the bathroom, and my mom had fallen down, and she had hit her head quite badly because she was holding her head. And from what I had heard as a doctor, I could realize that impact was quite severe. And it was just, I had, and she had blacked out after that. So I didn't know what to do. I like a thousand things came to mind. Should I take a CT? Should I take her to a surgeon? Should I do whatever? She came around in about 5-10 seconds, and then I asked her actually what happened. And when she said that I had been, I had sort of fallen down and had injured my head, there was some bleeding happening. I took her to the surgeon, and then we got her checked up. The surgeon was quite shocked. By the time we reached there and we cleaned the hair and we saw, there was nothing there. There was absolutely nothing. There was just a very small scratch on the skin. To my mind, to a doctor's mind, it was okay. It wasn't a very big impact. But when she came back at home and when I opened the bandage and I saw, I can tell you it was goosebumps. And even as I tell this, it is goosebumps. It was the exact same spot where Swami had rubbed me on my head 2 days back. It was, and she completely came through it and with no absolutely any injury. We did a CT. It was absolutely clean. The neurosurgeon, the orthopedic surgeon, everybody was shocked that, somebody at that age, was already 70 then, would have a fall and, injure so badly, and absolutely nothing is seen on the skin or inside. Swami is, I was quite sure, again, it was a monkey mind thinking that, oh no, it was not so great, but obviously the injury had been taken off by something else and by a much higher power. And I can never thank Swami for the kind of protection he's given me on that, because the injury would have been terrible as much as I understand it as a doctor. Let's come ahead to Sarkar 2014. Now this is something where Swami really gave a revelation of a lifetime for me and for my dad. My father has been suffering from Parkinson's from quite some time, 2007-8 onwards, but what worsened his general condition was a lower back pain which had started way back in 2006 or 7. He was diagnosed with what is called as spondylolisthesis, where there is a slippage of the discs over one another, and there's a vertebra that goes one over the other, and it's very painful, I can tell you that. He used to have spasms like walking even 150 meters, and it was all in his legs, and he was quite bedridden because of that. Parkinson's was not so bad, but this pain was terrible for him. We had tried a lot of treatments. We tried physiotherapy, we tried traction, we tried all kinds of things. We had taken neurosurgery consults here in Nimhans and back in Mumbai. They all said that surgery would be needed at some point in time, quite soon. We had planned it on a certain day. I had spoken to Dr. Rudrapa sir, who was here at that time, who is in Sakra right now. And I knew him because I was working here earlier before he shifted gears. And I spoke to him and he had one look at the MRI and said, yeah, Prayag, your dad needs surgery. So it was to be that on a Friday we were going to get him admitted, and Monday was the scheduled surgery on that week, some week in 2014. Friday, I can tell you, there was I and Dr. Das sir, we all in the department know a common devotee who stays in Parthi, and she got a letter written by Swami in his hand. It was like a commandment. It was like 10 commandments. There were 10 prescriptions written in Swami's hand, in Swami's handwriting, signed as Baba. And the first line was, Ramdas will not have surgery, no surgery. I can't tell you actually verbatim, but it was no surgery in 3 places. And he gave some exercises. There were actually some exercises written on it. Now this lady was not so close, but she called up and said, is this regarding your dad? So then I could make out what all those points meant. The last point was something very, very intriguing, very interesting. With Dasar's permission, if he is seeing this, Swami used to call Dasar Dasu, D-A-S-U, Dasu. So it's written on the 10th point, tell Dasu to rub his back. Now, the first 9 points I could make sense of, obviously. It's very difficult to tell your HOD of the department to say that, I'll get my dad, sir, please rub his back. I'm sure you all are smiling when you actually hear this. I also felt very sheepish, actually trying to follow this. I looked at Swami and there's no answer. Probably it was just go ahead with whatever. So it was that on a Saturday afternoon, after the rounds were over, I tracked with sir to his room, and I told him that this is what has happened. He said, yeah, go ahead for surgery. I said, no sir. Swami said, no surgery. Then he said, okay, fine, no surgery. Then I said, sir, Swami said something about you. You have to rub his back. Now he looked so incredulously at me. We had neurosurgeons and we had neurologists and X and Y and Z, and you have a cardiologist wanting to treat, his back pain. So sir started laughing, obviously. He said, yeah, but Swami has said, then we have to follow it. So 5 o'clock, I got dad and mom here. Sir was very kind. He didn't make it look as if it was a medical rub. He kept talking to dad and, sort of rubbing it. Trust me when I say this, there are a lot of people in my department in cardiology who have worked with Sir. Dr. Das is no ordinary mortal. I can tell you this. He's a great cardiologist. He's a great teacher, all that apart. But I know him personally since I worked with him for the last 12, 15 years. He's a great human being and his power comes from here. There are a lot of people who will not get a chance to sit here, like Dr. Barua sir. He might, of course, but Dr. Madhu, Dr. Sakre, Dr. Keshav, Dr. Deepak, all of them who have actually worked and who have been our ex-students. I'm sure I can vouch for all of them when I say this, that when you work in the lab with Sir, it's not just about cardiology. It's about a power which he has, which obviously comes from a much higher power. Where we all become instruments and something else takes over. Sir just gave him a rub as he spoke. Uncle, how are you? And Uncle, how is this? And all that. I never made Dad known that this was happening to him so much. But I can tell you one thing, standing here in front of, with Swami here and in front of all of you, in 1 month his pain vanished. It completely vanished. There was no need of any surgery. There was no need of any medicine at all. He takes medicines for Parkinson's, of course, that's still going on. But I don't think from 2014 till date, he's had any real problem with Parkinson's. With the lower back pain, I'm sorry. So I think that is, it was something that, of course, we all know Sir as a cardiologist, but this is how Swami, even made, for him really the degree is not important. It's how he works through somebody. And it is that thing which I can never be enough thankful for Swami, for actually making my dad walk for the last, 6 years and, at least make him independent. He's been a very independent person all his life. It looks very sad when you have to depend on somebody else at that age. And I think that confidence is what Swami gave back in all of us. Going ahead with one more incident that really comes to mind is for my child. My child was born with quite a bit of jaundice. And we had a very tough time when he was born for the first 1 or 2 months. And, he was in and out of the hospital in Manipal initially. Twice or thrice we had admitted him for his jaundice. Out of nowhere suddenly, he was born in September 2012, but out of nowhere suddenly in November end, there was one gentleman who was a saint who came home. Now this person comes to the hospital off and on. I don't know why he came in November. He knows best why he came in November in 2012 after Swami's birthday. He had come to Parthi and from there he came here. And he visited home and he came directly to our house and said, I need to have a puja here for this child. We scrambled up something because we were not ready for it really. So we scrambled up some puja and we had an aarti. And after the aarti, he gave my wife a locket, Anu a locket, and said, make your child wear this and you will get answers for all your questions. That's all he said. He didn't really tell anything. That incident ended there. December 1st week, there is a family who stays in DRDO in Bangalore. So we had just, wanted to go there because my parents wanted to see that house. It's a house where there's a lot of devotion going on towards Swami and a lot of bhajans, a lot of miracles happen there. We really didn't want to see the miracles. My parents don't really believe in that at all. They say they are all Swami's Leelas. You don't need to be fascinated by them because he is much bigger than his miracles. But in any case, we went there because of a devotional touch to that house. So we went there and we had gone to the altar. Altar was in an inner room. So we left the child outside because he was crying a little. So we didn't want to take him in. And then we went in. And when that happened, the lady of the house said, why don't you get your child inside? Now, I don't know really what transpired between those 5 minutes. By the time we got the child and we kept him in the altar, he was completely covered with vibhuti. Top to toe, Sainil was completely covered with vibhuti. It was in his ears, nose, it was in his diapers, everywhere. And the child was just looking at Swami and laughing. And all of us were in tears because it was something very touching. It was not a medical thing that we ever discussed with anybody. And he knew what kind of pain we were going through in those times. And it was, quite revealing that a child was completely covered with vibhuti. I still have the photographs which I can share if it's part of this talk. But then it gave us a lot of confidence. It gave us a lot of confidence and a lot of mental peace that our child is in safe hands, much bigger than ours. And time and again, he has again come back to my life and our life, I should say, as a family and tell that, you're looking at one aspect of it. I'm looking at something much bigger. So in the larger sphere of things, I think it holds true for all of us here, that if we believe that in the larger sphere of things, someone else and something else is taken care of, and we don't remember to surrender, I don't think things get done. Because, when you are at the end of hope and at the start of surrender and you think, say, Swami, you take over, I can't do this anymore. I think that's the time he says, okay, that's fine. I'm going to take over from now and I'll do the job and you see the results. That's something that I have learned, that I shouldn't hold too many things and try to control it myself, because many things are not in our control. A couple of things that come to mind very vividly, of course, is even as I speak here today, there's something that I need to tell you. I can't read out of this paper too simply or too easily. I have a little bit of dyslexia. Dyslexia is a medical disorder that some children have, where they can't read out of a textbook. You can talk, I can speak to you, I can answer a viva voce, but when I write, I can't look at a textbook and read, and I hope I'm phrasing myself correctly, but you can't read. There's a connect between how you see it and how the brain reads a book. It was not too bad. I used to stammer a lot. I still do. I used to stammer a lot in school, much more than what I do now. And I was a very poor public speaker. And it so happened that in medical school, obviously we have to read tomes of books. You can imagine my plight. I used to read. I used to understand when somebody used to explain some medical terminology, or when I see a patient. But to actually read from a book and try to understand and write it was a little difficult for me. I used to take a track 2 for that. My track 2 was I used to draw. I used to try to draw as much as I can, write tables other than write sentences. And actually it worked out that in medicine, because of the number of papers that the doctors have to correct, and doctors are very busy people, they would prefer somebody doing this. That somehow he made my fault into a kind of like a positive. So 2000 I appeared for my MBBS exams. This is some memory which I have very rarely shared with any of my friends. 2000 I appeared for my exams in September. Exams got over, practicals got over, and after my practicals we went to Parthi. We were in Parthi in the last week of December. We were actually going towards Anandpur, and someone told us out of no need, someone came and told my dad, are you trying to visit Swami? Swami has gone back to Bangalore. So we again came back to Bangalore, and we saw Swami here. Swami gave us an audience that evening, and for some reason Swami looked at us and just did this. There was an abhayasta. I think it was to the general crowd. It wasn't really to me. We always feel it is to us. But then it is for everybody, of course. It ended there. But what had happened was, in my exams, that was a very unique exam that year, because papers had leaked. Some question papers had leaked for that exam. And we were thinking that there was going to be a re-exam, actually. In October, there was only one re-exam, and that too was in gynecology. I appeared for that, and willy-nilly it all went off well. December, when we were in Parthi, there was a telegram back home saying that I had to appear in front of Unfair Means Enquiry Committee. Now, this was a shock. It was like a thunderbolt for our family. My parents started doubting me, actually, whether I was part of that leak or whatever. And it was out of the blue. It was like Unfair Means Enquiry Committee. You have to appear before it on December 30th, so and so. I was crying at home. I said, I have not done anything. I gave an exam nicely. Gynecology is one subject I don't need to do anything. I'm never going to do it in my life. I don't need a gold medal for it. So I'll write with whatever, but I have passed it legitimately. So my parents said, fine, if you're clear and your conscience is clear. My parents have been very staunch devotees of Swami. They said, Swami will take care of you. You just appear before the interview. So it was that on 30th December, we went for the interview room. Now when I went inside, Dad had given me a photograph of Swami to keep in my breast pocket. So I just went inside, and there was a group of some 6 people sitting there, and they started asking questions. And the questions were from my medicine paper 2, which I had appeared somewhere in the end of September. They said, this is the question, what have you written? This is the question, what have you written? Somewhere in the back of my mind it was scratching, this is not gynecology. This is not, they are asking me on something completely different. I started answering the questions, of course. And this went on for about 45 minutes. The whole paper they found out. Then they took another paper out. Now it is, looking back, it is not quite fair for somebody to actually remember what you have written 2.5 months back and take a kind of a viva voce on. But I scraped through that thing very well. I gave all the answers. And after the thing was over, I still remember his name is Dr. Chijgar. They are not supposed to reveal, their examiners are not supposed to reveal their names in the exam. So he comes up to me and says, which hospital are you from? Where did you do your training? What does your father do? So I was still not clear what was going on there. So I gave all the answers, and then what he did is, he asked me, do you know why we have called you here? So then he slid the answer paper in front of me. He said, these are your marks in this paper. Trust me when I say this, I'm not boastful of saying this. Very proud of it. My marks read 55 out of 50. And he said this has never happened in the history of Bombay University. This is something that we had to do because there's no other way without like revealing the anonymity of either them or me, they would ever have a tete on tete with me. When I saw that, and then I got the import of what it was, because I was thinking all along it is the other thing. He said the only reason I have given you these marks in paper is because you have drawn everything that you have written. Had you written it down, probably you wouldn't have finished your paper. This is how he converts a negative in your life into a positive. Probably if I had written it all along, that was the gold medal I got in medicine. That sort of, went ahead with me in my MD, went ahead in my DNB cardiology, went ahead here, and I'm here right now. If you see from where he's taken care of me, I was crying after the interview. Then they had to get tea and snacks, and I made a big fuss over it, because when I came out and I told that, trust me, nobody in the world would ever believe what I am saying here. You can go back and check facts with Mumbai University if you have to. But then when he takes over, he can do things which, we don't need a locket and a ring and an idol to have miracles. These are miracles. These are very abstract miracles of Swami, where he tells you that as long as you trust in me, I'll take care of all the faults that you have and probably convert a fault into like a shortcoming into a positive. That has remained with me for quite a long time, and it came back in 2014. Ashwin brother walked up to me and said, Prayag, we want you to speak for the anniversary. Now I told you I am a dyslexic. I can't even read out of a paper and really talk to you. And I said yes. I didn't realize what he was saying. I said yes. In 7 days he comes back to me, Prayag, are you ready with your talk? Like this was his typical Ashwin type of attitude. Are you ready with your talk? I said yes. You're going to have like a lot of people looking at you, and like radio sai camera trains on. Then I realized he was talking about Puttaparthi. He was not. I was thinking he was talking about here. I had never spoken in Kulwant, and again I developed cold feet. I said I have never spoken there. He said no, I have already given the name. I have already said that you are going to be talking. And so it was that 2014 onwards, 2014 was my first talk which I gave in Kulwant. And honestly, I can tell you, I spoke something else from what I had written because I had the difficulty. I just made points and I said, I'm going to talk about whatever you want me to talk, Swami. And it went off well. My brothers back home had confidence in the way I spoke, and he had confidence in the way I spoke, and he's made me speak on every anniversary in some form, making sure that a dyslexic child with that drawback, who came from a semi-English medium school, actually could sit and speak before you today, or in front of the whole crowd back from 2014 to 2020. Again, a very stellar way of converting somebody's shortcoming into a like a positive and taking care of it. I can never thank him enough for so many things that he's done for me, starting with this, of course. I don't know if I'm like really overshooting time, but I can give you a few more incidents which are more of medically oriented examples. I can tell you something which is happening right now in the hospital. We always, like a lot of people come to us and ask, you see a lot of patients there. Do you see any miracles? I'll tell you one living miracle happening right now in the hospital. 2 weeks back, we had a patient referred by our trust, very close to our trust, for a certain procedure in which we had to put a pacemaker in his heart, a very special pacemaker in his heart. Everything was taken care of, his trip from Parthi here, and he was admitted, and all the necessary medications were started. We were going to do it on a Saturday morning. Friday, this man develops a stroke, a massive stroke. My residents call me and Dr. Rita, who are here now, and we all went running to the CCU, and this guy had, was not moving his entire right side. It was shocking to us that, there is no real term called as a VIP in Swami. The only VIP is him. All of us are equally VIPs to him. But then he was somebody sent by, the trust, and we had to be a little more careful with him. Unfortunately, this happened. When we saw him on Saturday, when that thing happened, on Friday, when that thing happened, his whole right side had gone. We took him to the cath lab, we shot him, and we gave him some injections for it. I can tell you, medically, I have read this in books. I've seen it on YouTube. I've seen videos of it. The man was walking by afternoon. It has never happened in medical literature earlier. In fact, when we consulted our neurologist and our neurosurgeon here, they were all in attendance when we were treating him. If you see the amount of discord between his MRI pictures and his actual life, if somebody sees an MRI like that, they'll say, no, this guy is decrepit. He's on a bed. He's not going to ever walk in his life. There's a huge stroke on the MRI, and the guy is walking. The guy is walking. He's eating. He's even able to vocalize a little. These things don't work in medical literature like that. This is something which is much beyond medical literature. In fact, we have done the pacemaker so well, and his family is so happy. They're all going back today. Even as I speak to you, I have just signed their discharge summary. He's walking back home. I have not seen this in medical literature. None of my doctors else here also have. Way back in 2014, on the eve of our anniversary, I was supposed to go on a Saturday. Sunday was the anniversary. Saturday we have our follow-up OPD, and there was one gentleman there who has who sort of gave a revelation of a lifetime for me that day. He had undergone a very complex surgery. I mentioned this in one of my earlier talks, which I gave in the anniversary the very next day. One Muslim fellow, I don't make distinctions, but then it's important to say this. He was a Muslim fellow from Kolar, and our CTVS team had done a great surgery for him. They put in a new artery called as a bypass. They had put in a valve. It's a very complex surgery, and there's a lot of mortality for it. He had made through it really well, and our surgeons are very good with this. If world over the mortality is 4 or 5%, we hardly have less than 0.5%. So it was a great job done. By the time he went through the OPD rigmarole of going through the echo and then sitting in front of me, the guy was crying. Just to brighten up his spirits, I asked him, Allah Baksh, aap kya ho gaya? Are you fine? Like, kya ho gaya? Aap theek to hain? Bahut dard hai kya? What he said next was something which was, very, very touching for me. He said, his name is Haji. Haji Abdul Sartar something. So he had gone to Hajj. You get that tag of Haji if you go to Hajj. He said, मैं 5 बार हज गया हूँ साहब. मेरा अल्लाह मैंने इधर मुझे मिला, बैंगलोर में मिला. And it is coming, across borders of religion, across borders of creed, nationality, whatever. It is something, it is at that point that Swami touches people. You really feel that, this is about an edifice and about hi-fi software and hi-fi equipments. It's not really. It's only when that sense is met for a patient that, I have searched for God and I find my God here. Because he doesn't even look for God in an idol. In their religion, they don't even look for it in a person or in an idol. He sees it in what he's been treated with. Without any need for, one pie. It's just that you walk into a hospital, you get a complex surgery done and you live. You go back home and you earn for your family. I think at that point when Swami has touched, whether it is health or whether it is education, where somebody gets educated in any of the institutions absolutely free of cost, gets a degree and goes back home, or water projects, where out of no rhyme or reason you have somebody, giving 10,000 kilometers of a water project. I think that is where God resides. God doesn't really reside in incense and in dhoop and in, whatever, pujas and artis. I think it's when he's reached them there, I think that is to the extent where Swami has reached. And these have been some snippets which people have come back to me and said, there was one incident which I'm sure Dr. Das sir and me both will remember. We were doing an angioplasty of a patient, which was a very complex triple vessel angioplasty. 3 stents had to be put, very tight lesions, very bad disease. And sir was trying to explain to him after the angiogram, we are going to do this. The family was a little skeptical. They said, no, we are not. The guy, was absolutely clear on his bed. And he said, आपको जो करना है करो डॉक्टर साहब. कल रात मेरे को बाबा आके बोल के गया सब अच्छा होगा. And that gets goosebumps even as I say it. And this was in 2013-14. And we said, आपने किसको देखा? And then he pointed at a photograph in the cath lab and said, वो कल रात को आए थे. Now it is, after that we were all at peace that someone else is doing the angioplasty. Again, I keep saying that, it's like we are doing it. Because our monkey mind is trained to thinking that we are doing it. We are going to be taking a risk. When we decide, and then, sir was looking at me and said, now it's done. Don't worry. He'll come through it, whatever happens. The angioplasty went absolutely fine. He's still coming 6 years down the line. The simple message, the simple recurring message in all of this is, do what you can, because I'm standing behind you, and it is his hands which are guiding us. A lot of doctors here, Dr. Hiremat, Dr. Dilip, Dr. Sumit, many doctors here who work and who operate, who actually have told me this, that they can feel it every day in the OTs, in the wards. In Parthi, we have got incidents where Swami has physically come walking to the CCU many times, and the patients without even known. I'm sure Shara's sister had actually mentioned that in her talk. Those incidents keep happening. it's more of the essence behind that happening rather than the miracle itself. And it's to, when he boosts their confidence, and even without his physical presence today, because we're still stuck in 2011. Even when I think, I see Swami coming out, because that's how I've always grown up, seeing Swami come out either in PC Hall, or if it's in Kulwant, whether it's Purnachandra or Kulwant. I've seen Swami walking, or later Swami coming out, and and then the chair coming out. I think there was a clear message in that there need not be a physical Swami. This is how he reaches us, because they can still see him in a much larger than life image. Probably our eyes are not tuned to that as doctors or as sisters or whatever. Probably they can see him better because they relate to him at a different level altogether. And I think that is one thing I've carried, that every patient who, like this, has really taught me, increased my confidence, increased his confidence, of course, and through the patient has increased my confidence that our work is here completely guided by some much bigger force, which is looking not really for health or for like medicines or hi-fi equipment. I think it's for transformation. I think that really has worked all along in my life. I think I'll end here today. It's been a great journey. As I have titled this as the journey home. My journey home has started, of course, as I said, right from my own beginning, my own physical beginning, and I'm very thankful to Swami for having given me my parents and the initiation, because the values that they have taught me, the values that Bal Vikas has taught me right from childhood, whether as a Sevadal, whether as a student of Swami earlier, I think it has generally helped me groom myself as a better human being. Swami has always taught us that life is a journey. It's really not a destination, and we are all in this learning. Even as we are going through these very tough times of COVID, where we have always felt as doctors that wearing a mask in front of a patient was a little difficult for us, because we thought we lost the touch. But I'm sure he's going to take us through this difficult procedure time. And of course, he's guiding us at every point in life. I thank Swami. I thank the organization for giving me a chance to speak here today. I don't know how much of my own personal experiences you would relate to, but I'm sure since we all live together and strive together as a family, there's a bigger message for all of us in this, that we should all always love all and serve all, and he's always there for us to guide in that help ever, hurt never principle. And if we are at a low in life, whenever I was at my low in life, I have always felt that the minute we surrender and he takes over, life gets set. So I'll just stop at this. Sairam.
You will not receive love. As is your feeling, so will be your experience. It's only your bad thought that comes back to you in the form of reaction, reflection and resound. Never give any scope for such things. In fact, all qualities are in you. You attribute these things to other beings and blame them. Let him be anyone, good or bad, you should continue to love. In fact, there is nothing like bad in this world. Everything is your imagination. In fact, hatred is your imagination. The love is your imagination. The one that protects is also your imagination. Everything is your imagination. And it's all your imagination that you think always. Manava, the human, does not necessarily mean just the senses and the different parts of the body. A true human being is the one who will not hurt anybody, who will not harm anybody. Then only he belongs to vast community of humanity. Who is a human manava? Not merely by form. By practice he should be a human. He should have noble character. He should have good conduct and behavior. He should have good. He should speak good.
సరైనటువంటి నడతలు నడచాలి.
And you should have proper behavior in life.
మన యొక్క నడతలు మంచివైనప్పుడే దైవత్వం మనలో ప్రవేశిస్తుంటుంది.
If our attitude and behavior are proper, we can experience divinity.
కనుకనే ఈనాడు మీరు చేసినటువంటి యొక్క పవిత్రమైనటువంటి నామస్మరణ అన్ని ఆధారమైనటువంటి యొక్క హృదయాల్లోన ప్రవేశిస్తున్నాయి.
The chanting of the sacred, matchless name of God will certainly sanctify the hearts of the vast humanity.
కనుక మీరు చెడ్డ భావనకు ఏమాత్రం అవకాశం ఇవ్వకండి.
Never give scope for bad thoughts.
బ్యాడ్ వర్డ్స్ అంతా మీరు అవకాశం ఇవ్వకండి.
Never speak bad words.
పవిత్రమైనటువంటి యొక్క పదవులు మీరు ఉపయోగపెట్టండి.
Use always sacred words.
తీయని పదవులు ఉపయోగపెట్టండి.
Talk sweetly.
దైవనామాన్ని ఉపయోగపెట్టండి.
And sing the glory of God.
దానివల్లనే జగత్తుకంతా మనం ఉపకారం చేసిన వారం అవుతాం.
That renders almost a help to the whole world.
Help ever, hurt never.
Help ever, hurt never.
ఇతరులకు ఏమాత్రం కూడా అపకారం చేయకండి.
Never harm anybody.
ఉపకారమే చేస్తూ రండి.
Help others continuously.
ఈ ఉపకారం చేస్తూ రావటం చేత మీకు అంతా కూడాను ఉపయోగమైనటువంటి యొక్క ఫలములే కలుగుతాయి.
When once you help everybody, you will have positive results.
కనుక
సో
మీరు తగినటువంటి ఒక కాలంనంతా కూడాను వ్యర్థం చేయకండి.
Never waste your time.
చదువుతో పాటు
along with education,
నామస్మరణతో పాటు
along with singing,
దివ్యమైనటువంటి యొక్క కీర్తనతో పాటు
along with singing good
హృదయాన్ని
hymns,
పవిత్రంగా గావించుకోండి.
you should make your hearts sacred.
భజ గోవిందం భజ గోవిందం గోవిందం భజ మూఢమతే గోవిందం భజ మూఢమతే భజ గోవిందం భజ గోవిందం గోవిందం భజ మూఢమతే సంప్రాప్తే సన్నిహితే కాలే సంప్రాప్తే సన్నిహితే కాలే నహి నహి రక్షతి దుఃఖకరణే నహి నహి రక్షతి దుఃఖకరణే పునరపి జననం పునరపి మరణం పునరపి జననం పునరపి మరణం పునరపి జనని జఠరే శయనం పునరపి జనని జఠరే శయనం ఇహ సంసారే బహుదుస్తారే ఇహ సంసారే బహుదుస్తారే ఇహ సంసారే బహుదుస్తారే कृपया पारे पाहि मुरारे भज गोविंदम भज गोविंदम Bhagavate